Good evening, and welcome back to the second episode of the Founders Ark, the Lost Ark podcast. There we go. Blah. I lost myself in my words. This is a great start, and we are back. Well, technically, I'm back because Beaver decided to get the COVID booster, and that thing is doing its worst. So unfortunately, he cannot be here with us today, which really sucks. Sorry to say that. And well, I at least wanted to do a little bit of a podcast here on my own. It will not be as long as the usual one because, well, I don't really have anyone to talk to. And talking to myself I can do. It's just not as fun. So let's have our second episode of the Founders Ark. And welcome in, people. Welcome in. Speaking of welcome in, let me do something very quickly here in the meantime, because, as you know, I'm a professional for all of this, and I have totally put a pop-up chat on the left side. Yes, very smart. There we go. That is much better. Awesome. Let me put that into position, and then we should be good to go. Awesome. Sorry for that interruption. Truly sorry about that. And yeah, we are back. This is working. Awesome. Works. Fantastic. Now let's go back. So this is the second episode. And another week has been passed in the good old times of Lost Ark. And I would say we're talking a little bit about Europe and what has now changed since we have a week of the new Western region in Europe. And I would say it got a little bit better. I'm not sure if it got better because of the Western region, or if it actually got better because of Elden Ring in the last few days. Probably a mix of both. However, it got a little bit better. I think some people just stopped playing. Some other people finally moved because they had enough of the bullshit. And like even yesterday, in the late evening here in Europe, prime time, I had like 6,000, 7,000 people only in queue. That's still an hour-long waiting time, but I think it's just a little bit better than it was before, right? And I'm looking. If you're wondering what I'm looking at, this is some good old footage of one of my live streams. And if you're like, wow, what an interesting jump to Elden Ring, yes. So I think the second week definitely got better. Also, what they definitely fixed, and I'm super proud of that, is they fixed the overarching server structure. So one of the biggest problems we had in Europe was even if you got into your server, you couldn't really do any activities because the cross-server technology they were using was completely overrun by basically anything, right? It's like you couldn't do much. You couldn't do much at all, and it was just annoying. So I'm actually glad that they apparently fixed it, and even if you have to wait a little bit longer, you can at least now just do something afterwards. You can just do your things, and it works, and that's good. So first week of the new Western region definitely alleviated some of the problems. It's still not great, but I think we did move from completely unplayable to this is now playable. Here's great, right? This is like, it's great now, and we are now here, so they still have a way to go, but it's just better. It's just better. So that is the first week of the new Western region. and they are still working on some of the problems. They posted actually like an announcement last week that they're working some on the bigger issues, like server structure, right? Gold sellers is one of the things they are definitely working on. I still see some gold sellers here and there, but it seems like it doesn't pick up. It doesn't really pick up, which is good. Or whatever they're doing it pretty well. Like, yes, I do see one or two gold sellers coming up in a chat, and that's pretty annoying, let's face it. But we're not overrun by them, and they're also getting swapped out relatively quickly. So whatever they are doing, it works to a certain degree. Like, let's be real here. There is no indefinitely protection when it comes to gold sellers. Like, there will always be somebody, even if they are doing it manually, there will be some gold sellers doing it, right? But whatever they're doing, it slows them down, and it does the right thing. And yeah, so gold sellers don't seem to be that much of a problem, especially because right now, at least, you don't really need the gold sellers when you think about it. The low-level characters do not really need gold, right? They don't need gold. And the high-end characters make so much gold that it isn't really a problem. And I think that's a problem also for gold farmers, right? Like what gold farmers normally do is they are just using bots or other things to mindlessly farm some enemies and get the money from that. But that's not how gold works in Lost Ark. In Lost Ark, you have to do quests, you have to do dungeons, you actually have to put in quite a bit of work to get your daily fix of gold. Like even the Una's task, which can net you a good chunk of gold, they need manual work because you have to do quests, and I don't really see like a program being able to do it and then also do the quests you are getting. So it seems to be something they have to do manually, and it still takes some time. So yeah, like gold sellers don't really like the system on how you get gold in the game is quite problematic. And also the players can just buy their gold if they really want to. Like, because of how the system is set up, you can just get your gold yourself by just using real money and buy it, more or less, right? So it's like, yeah, why would I need a gold seller? So that's good. I'm really happy about that, and that isn't really a problem. We will see if that stays that way. But I would say Lost Ark is doing pretty okay-ish with that. What have I done this week? Oh yeah, so I have now finally reached tier 2. Reached it yesterday. I'm now on my way to do like all the quests and sailing around and doing the things. Yay! But I have to say, reaching tier 2 is such an interesting process. So if you haven't reached tier 2 yet, there is this level 600 drought. So you have to reach 600, right, to start your tier 2 adventure. And till item level 500, I would say, it isn't really that much of a problem. Right. And give me just 1 second here. Excuse me. Yeah, like so till 500, upgrading your equipment is not that problematic. It slows down a little bit, and you get a lot of momentum from all the islands and all the things you can do. But then at around 500, it feels like it slows down quite a bit, and then also your chance to actually screw up something and the amount of resources you need. Like, I think the longest time took me from 540, 560, around that, to get to 600. That nearly took me a week. And of course, granted, like as I said before, I'm also on a server where logging in is a problem. And I've been also focusing on a few other things, so I was not optimizing my leveling process. But with that said, it slows down significantly. And that you can actually fail your upgrades now. Like, there's actually a pretty good chance for you to just fail, and then your whole work of a day is basically going down the gutter. It's so unfortunate. It's so unfortunate when that happens. And yeah, I'm just glad that I'm now 600. I have to do my dailies and all that, so I can fast track to 800. So it's a bit weird for everyone who doesn't know how it works. You have to reach 600 to activate like all the tier 2 stuff, and then you have to do the quests and you have to do the journey and all that. And then you're opening up the chaos dungeons at item level 600, and you will find gear which will catapult you to item level 800 immediately. And then you have to reach 1000, right? And that's like the step of 1000 something or something. I always forget the exact number. I think it was 1000. And tier 2 seems to be a little bit better when it comes to the leveling process. Like, there is this weird in between at tier 1 to reach the 600, which you don't apparently get in tier 2. Like, it feels much more natural to go from tier 2 to tier 3. I'm not saying that it doesn't take as long, right? But it feels not as weird, if that makes sense. So I'm kind of curious to see how tier 2 works. That's something I've never reached in the Russian version of the game, because I didn't want to put more time into Lost Ark, because I was always hoping that the game is coming out here in the West. Well, it took them much longer than I anticipated, but I never dabbled into tier 2. And this is super interesting. Like, I talked to some people regarding tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, and now that they are seeing this leveling process and this upgrade process, I've actually talked now to quite a fair amount of people who said they don't like the process. And I'm not really talking about upgrading your equipment to get better. That's a completely different topic. But what they mean is, it feels like as if there is so much. And I think what we're actually seeing here is the problem that we are now getting content for the last 3 years. Like, this is all content which is available in South Korea right now, and this is content of the last 3 years. Like, we are pretty much on par with South Korea when it comes to content. Yeah, sure, we don't have the raid dungeons, right? That is missing. And we have still missing some of the abyssal dungeons and some of the guardian raids. But it's rather minuscule in comparison. Like, we are still very, very close. And I think that's the problem, right? It is so much content that you are sometimes logging in and you don't really know what to do, because there is so much. You have so many things you can do, which is, again, fantastic, but it can also be very overwhelming. And I see this with a lot of people who reach level 50 for the first time, who have never really played the game, and their first reaction at level 50 is, oh boy. am I doing next? Right? Like, what am I doing next when it comes to like all the things I can do in the game? And it's kind of crazy. So I can see why people are a little bit overwhelmed when it comes down to those things. But I think it's also a good thing, because right now, keep in mind that Lost Ark is not at its end. Lost Ark still has tons of content planned, tons of things prepared, and there is still so much coming. And what South Korea definitely wants is they want to keep us up to date with everything they have, so that maybe at some point we will get content patches as close as South Korea gets them. I'm not saying we will be on the same release scale, because they still have some work to do, right? But I can definitely see that maybe we will get those content patches a month or two, like maybe a month, more like a month into their release schedule. So that whenever they're getting new content a month later, we will get the exact content here in the West. And they have to get us up to date. And yeah, this might be a little bit annoying, but it has to be done, you know. What I'm doing here, by the way, right now, if you're wondering what the hell is he doing, this is again from my recent Lost Ark stream, and I've been starting to farm for the Astray. And if you're like, the whom? The Astray is the fastest ship and the best ship in Lost Ark. But to get there, it takes weeks, if not even months. And that's what I'm working on right now. And I know it doesn't make my character stronger. It doesn't make me better in any shape or form. But as I said before, I reached the point where I didn't want to just farm all day just to get a little bit of better equipment and to get into the next tier level. I didn't really want to do that because I didn't feel like it. And because the Astray is something you have to do gradually. Like, it's not something you can push for. Like, you cannot just decide over a weekend to say, okay, this weekend I will focus on farming the Astray. That just doesn't work, because there are limitations in the whole chain of events you have to do, which just don't allow you to do them once per day, right? Like, there's some report you have to do, there's some daily quests you have to do, and they are limited to once a day. So the sooner you start, the better it is, because again, it won't get faster. There is no way to speed it up. Like, you have the same limitations as everyone else. And so this is why I wanted to start as soon as possible with the Astray. And that's what I'm working on. Now that I also reached tier 2, I will definitely try to unlock that. But I will take my time. Like I said before, Lost Ark is not the game which is a play and burn through game. Like, there are some MMOs which I have played quite aggressively in my time. But then after a month, I gave up on it and moved on. Right? Like, I played 8 hours a day. I was no-lifing some of those MMOs. But after a month, I reached a point where I said, I think I'm done for today. And I don't want to do that with Lost Ark. I want to take my time. I want to have fun with it. And that's exactly what I'm aiming for. Also, I have a lot of like pre-knowledge for Lost Ark. Keep in mind that I've been playing it in Russia, and also I had the opportunity, thanks to Amazon, to actually play the game a month before the release, right? And so I could already play the end game on their special, like, Amazon server, so to speak. So I have a lot of like pre-knowledge, and I can just take it easy. But yeah, I'm on my way to tier 2 now. Let's talk about PvP here for a moment, because I haven't played PvP in over a week. And that's not good, right? Because I'm not getting better. But the problem is right now that I feel like I don't really have the time for PvP. Right? I'm farming the Astray, I'm farming my equipment, and those are all the things which are already taking a lot of time out of my daily schedule. I'm also doing some islands here and there to get some resources from the islands, and I'm doing my reports. It's all takes time, and I just don't have the time for PvP in between. And I think it would have been a little bit easier if they would have actually give us something for PvP. It is so weird that they removed all the PvP rewards from the game. Like, we know that season 1 will come at some point, and then of course we can farm like cosmetics, mounts, and all that, and I'm looking forward to that, and I would definitely do that. But weirdly enough, even without the seasons, there was things you could get from doing PvP in Lost Ark. And it's kind of weird that it's gone. It's like, that feels a bit unfortunate. Because then I could actually justify to do some PvP and still get at least some upgrade materials for my character, or get any of the items I really need. And now I'm at the point where I cannot justify really the time I'm putting into PvP, even though I have a lot of fun with it. But then after an hour of doing PvP, I got nothing besides more experience, of course, with my character. But that still doesn't cut it. So yeah, unfortunately, PvP has to wait a little bit more till I get back to it. I will probably get back to it the closer we are getting to season 1. Speaking of which, this gets us to, well, more or less the last point for today, because being alone is making this a little bit more problematic, so to speak. But the last point I want to talk about is the future of Lost Ark. Or more, what has Amazon planned for us, right? What has Amazon planned for us? And I know we all know that the classes are coming, right? We all know that. And that's cool. There's still some content left, but we don't know when anything is coming. Right? Like, we don't know what Amazon has planned and what their content plans are. And that makes sense, because in the last 2 weeks, they were basically in emergency mode, right? And they just had to fix most of the problems the games had, and especially the servers had. Like, nobody really had the head for thinking about what's next in the content pipeline. And I totally respect that. But I think we have reached a point where it became stable in every region. Like, again, I'm not saying that Europe is now perfect. We are far from that. But it is definitely more stable. So I'm wondering what's next. Like, what is the next update we are getting? And this is just my personal wish list. PvP. I want that Season 1 is coming, or that at least we are getting the rewards for PvP. We will probably, starting by the end of March, get our first raid. The Void Raids, if they're called Void Raids in the Western version. We will probably also get our next class. And this is on a personal note. This is something like the fourth point is really just a wish. Equalize PvP on the islands. So I've done multiple PvP islands, and I really like the atmosphere on those islands. I really like what they are doing on those islands. I think they have some really cool free-for-all mechanics and all. Like, I really, really like the PvP islands. But they are so boring. Why? Because you're doing PvE damage, where you are literally doing like 40,000 damage to an enemy, and you have only 15,000 health. Like, I have some skills, if they hit fully charged, I can one-shot some people. Also, of course, depending on their equipment. And it's just... It is no fun, you know? And I'm still wondering why they have never fixed that. Like, the islands are on like an instance thing, right? And you have to load in. Why not load in with your PvP equipment or with your PvP stats? Like, why is this something they cannot do? Well, they haven't done already. Like, there is no benefit. Like, normally, we have always argued this in PvP in, like, some other games, where people were like, yeah, but there is no real system in place to do this. This would take so much work for such a small audience, yada, 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 yada. Lost Ark, though, on the other hand, has that audience, and more importantly, the system is there. Like, if you want to enter the arena, if you have never done that because you don't care for PvP, you have to build up your special book. There's like a PvP book where you can choose your abilities, which abilities you want to upgrade, which stats you want to upgrade. Like, even the abilities themselves are PvP balanced. So that means, like, a stun, which normally would stun an enemy for 4 seconds in PvE, and would do 10,000 damage. In PvP in the arena, it only stuns for 2 seconds and does only 5,000 damage. So even, like, the abilities are already tweaked for PvP. And the arenas don't utilize that. Not the arenas, sorry, the islands. The islands do not utilize that, and you're wondering... why is that so? Like, what is the thinking? Again, if this would be an open world thing, then I would totally understand that. If this would be like a certain area on one of the continents where you were doing PvE, this is something I would say, like, yeah, okay. They cannot really do that easily. It would actually take some work. Why do it in the first place, right? But those islands they're literally just there for that. They're purely PvP islands. Sure, there's sometimes a little bit of PvE there, or you have to go there for a quest, I get that, but it's mostly PvP. So why not give that to the island, right? And I would love to see that at some point, that Smygate is actually saying, okay, let's implement that. That's relatively easy to do, you know. But my guess is that next week, or the latest the week after that, we will get a roadmap. Or not a roadmap, just a general update on where we stand in Lost Ark, which classes are planned, which new content is planned. Especially keep in mind, South Korea got some relatively tangible content updates. No raids. I know some people only see raids as tangible content update, and it's like, no, not everything has to be a raid just to be considered content. Just because it's not your content doesn't mean there is no content, right? That's a big difference. But South Korea got a few things here and there. Also some quality of life updates, which I would love to see. Like, one of the things they implemented in South Korea is, as of recent, two things actually. The first thing is that you can now queue up for like any cross-server events from anywhere in the game. So let's say you want to do a Guardian raid or an Abyss dungeon, you don't have to go back into the city anymore, and you can just queue up wherever you are. And that is already interestingly discussed very much in the community, if that is a good idea or not, because that means that some of those hubs where a lot of people are running around might be a little bit like, well, not dead, but definitely less populated, right? And I have to argue, well, you still have to go back to upgrade your equipment, and you still find all the merchants there, right? Like, even if you're not queuing up from the city anymore, anything else is still there, and you still want to go back to it. So I don't really think that those areas quiet down too much. But I can totally see where people stand on that and understand why they think that, right? The next thing I've been seeing they did in quality of life improvements is you can now change the interface on what you pick up, especially in Chaos Dungeons. Like, you can make the size of the font smaller, and you can just cut it. And, oh, that's so good. Like, sometimes when I'm going into Chaos Dungeons and you are getting like all this equipment and all the stones to upgrade your equipment, I have problems to see the enemies sometimes. It's not great. It's a bit irritating sometimes. So I'm glad that they are changing that. And I'm really hoping we are getting those changes relatively quickly in our version. But I think that's it for me this week. We will definitely come back with some more interesting topics and bigger topics to discuss next week when Beaver is back. Because, as I said, unfortunately, he couldn't be with us today because the COVID booster is unfortunately kicking his ass. And, well, I had my COVID booster 2 weeks ago, and it's that weekend was just going down the drain. So I feel him. I feel him. But yeah, folks, thank you so much for watching. yeah, it was a bit of a recap. Because I have some topics I really want to discuss, but I don't want to discuss them with myself. I don't really want to have a monologue here. I mean, I can do that, but that's also pretty boring, right? Especially if you want to see like different opinions on different subjects. So we will wait till Beaver is back. But with that said, folks, thank you so much for watching. Also, for all the people who came by to watch it live. I really, really do appreciate that. Thank you very much, folks. And I will see you next week at 4 p.m. ET, which is 9 p.m. UK time, and 10 p.m. Central European time on Sunday for The Founders Ark Episode 3, live here on my YouTube channel. So if you're new and you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like. If you're also new to the channel, you want to see more Lost Ark content, like the podcast every Sunday, and also some tips and tricks for new games coming out, daily gaming news, and also reaction videos, I would appreciate if you might subscribe to the channel. That would help me out a great deal. And if you ever want to catch me live on my standard dates, because I'm not a YouTube streamer, I'm just doing this particular podcast on YouTube. But if you want to find me for other games and gaming news, which I'm streaming, you can find me from Monday to Friday at 9 a.m. East Coast time. That is 2 p.m. UK time and 3 p.m. Central European time over at trovo.live/ChaosMole. You will also find the link in the video description if you want to stop by and say hi. We are playing quite a bit of Lost Ark. Right now it's a lot of Elden Ring. Let's face it. We also have Shadow Warrior 3 coming up. I still have to finish up Dying Light 2. And yeah, it's just a lot of games, man. A lot of games. But with that said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And I hope to see you next week. And till then, have a good day. And most importantly, stay safe.